spirit stuff's been getting weird today. Like, massively weird. Alright, let's see. Oh, there I am. Hi! Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Emily. I'm a professional psychic activator, historical medium, and book lover, author. I do stuff. And this video is going to be a combo platter of all of the stuff that I do. And I didn't actually write out like any sort of script or guideline for this video, so it's going to be a little off the cuff. We're just going to call it off the cuff because that is how it's going to flow today. That's what we're feeling in this Mercury retrograde eclipse season. At least that's what I'm feeling right now. Also, though, even though I did not write a script for this, which I usually write like at least a little bullet points for all of my videos, I do have stuff I'm reading off of. So if I am looking away from the screen at any time, I'm not reading off of for like the script thing, but I have stories to tell you. Okay? Okay. We found guava juice at Costco the other day, and I got really excited. Not caffeinated this time. Well, kind of caffeinated. You get what I'm saying. This video is off to a killer start. Alrighty. First and foremost, before we dive in, I do want to say thank you to my Intuitive Initiate patrons, who are Alyssa, Carrie, Cheryl, Danny, and Sarah. Thank you so much. If you would like to join my Patreon, you get all sorts of fun perks. I do a lot of psychic mentorship from me to you, a lot of working with me to develop your psychic abilities, open up your channeling, connect with your guides, all sorts of magical stuff. There's monthly meditations, there's bonus videos, you get to vote on my content, you get coupon codes, my book list. I mean, there's so much stuff in the Patreon. I would love to have you in that space. Also, it would mean the world to me if you took a second and you liked this video, subscribed, commented, hit the little ringy bell so that you get notified of when I post. That would be amazing. So to start off this video though, I need to tell you a story. And this is going to be a video of many stories because we are talking about the magical door I discovered by accident. Now, of course, I didn't discover it, but you'll get it in the story, okay? But the magical doors that I found, but it was new to me, and it wasn't necessarily by accident. Anyway, I'm just getting into the story. Okay, so I went to Rome this past March. We were there because I am writing a book. It's called Locusta. It is a story of a woman named Locusta who poisoned multiple ancient Roman emperors. She did live. She did walk on planet. She does not have a narrative to herself, though. Of course, the men writing history didn't exactly like to include a lot of details. So I have channeled her in and talked to her, and I'm writing her story. So my darling husband for my 30th birthday was like, then let's go to Rome. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to talk to so many things. And when I mean things, I mean past loved ones. I mean people who lived in the ancient past. I mean ghosts. I mean energies. All of the things. I was hyped, obviously, and I get to eat good food, and it's Italy, so I don't need to justify that. Anyway, and another thing you need to know about me for this story is that I'm almost vegan. I am a vegetarian, I don't eat any meat, and I don't eat eggs. So basically, I can't give up cheese. God, why am I just... None of these details are important. Stick to the story, Emily. I guess we're in that kind of like super oversharing sort of day. Regardless, so I'm a vegetarian. One night for dinner, my husband was like, yo... No, he wasn't. My husband was like, hey, what would you like for dinner? And I had my little heart set, like, we're going to go find some delicious gnocchi. Now, whenever we travel, we are big walking people. We don't really like to take a lot of transportation if we can help it. So we're like, all right, well, let's walk out and go try to find some gnocchi. And I looked up a couple of fun places to get gnocchi, but we were kind of like, we'll just head in the general directions. And I was trying to follow the directions, which usually I'm really, really good at. It's actually like a special skill on my resume. Like I always know which way's north and can get us pretty much everywhere at any point in time, no matter what city we're in. But for some reason, I'm like, why can't I follow directions tonight? It's like the whole lines of everything are blurring and we're like in this random place. And I felt very weird. And then all of a sudden I got this like sort of feeling in my body. And I was like, whoop, that's a spiritual feeling. Something's going on. I'm like looking around. I'm like, what's nearby? And we like end up on the end of this street. And I look up and I'm like, oh, there's some ruins over there in that park, which like, if you've ever been to Italy or even like seen pictures of Rome, like there's ruins everywhere. They're just around. Fun fact, the place where Julius Caesar actually got stabbed is now a cat sanctuary. Still ruins, just filled with stray cats looking for homes. But anyway, so I'm like, okay, so there's some ruins over there. Maybe this boom feeling is coming from those ruins. So we walk over there and I'm looking up at him. And I'm like, okay, there's something interesting about this though. I'm feeling a lot of this energy, and I could feel it was like crackling energy, like electric sort of energy. I'm like, there's something here. There's something weird about this spot. And I was like asking Lacusta, who I was channeling the whole time, and she was just like, I don't know where this is. Like, we're on top of the Esquiline Hill. What do you want from me? Again, she lived there in ancient times. So she was like, don't care. And so then I'm like tuning into any sort of spirits or energies that are around. And there were a couple spirits there, and they just kind of gave me weird looks. They weren't really into like talking to me. So then I was like, okay, who lived here before? And like kind of put the call out to the universe a little bit, like, what is going on? Why do I feel this energy? And one of my guides basically like tapped me on the head. As I mentioned in previous videos, when my guides want to get my attention, they're like, pushing right here, and he like got me right there, and he was like, look it up, like literally go on Google. And I was like, okay, keep in mind it's dark, the park is closed, we should not probably be there in the dark when the park is closed. I'm not going into the park, but I'm just like walking around the fence like, this is interesting. We just got directed here, like we definitely got shoved in this direction. Turns out I open up Google and we're next to something, and it literally says the alchemical door, and I was like, okay. And so my amazing husband was like, why don't we come back here in the daytime when you can actually see this thing, and we go get dinner now? And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So we go, we find a restaurant, we're sitting down. It wasn't the gnocchi restaurant. Side note, I was very disappointed. The gnocchi restaurant was like reservation only. And so we ended up at this other restaurant, which was delicious. I mean, it's Italy. All of the food is delicious, but it was really, really good. But I didn't get gnocchi till later on the trip. Anyway, beside the point, but didn't get gnocchi. So when we get to the restaurant, I decided I'm going to try to tap into the energy again and try to get some understanding of what the heck this door is before I look up more about the door. And so I'm tuning in, and it feels, obviously I know it's about like alchemy now, so I'm feeling a lot of the crackling energy is, okay, there's something to do with symbols on this door. I'm feeling all the energy there. Now the interesting thing with that is the person that showed up for me that used to live in that house was actually ancient Roman. So the door itself actually dates to the 1600s, which I'm going to read you some of the myths about it in just a little bit. But the person that showed up for me actually used to live in the villa that existed on that hill during the Esquiline Hill days of ancient Rome. He showed up, and I believe he was like from the years 258-ish on is what he said. He was just kind of a random senator dude that was just kind of like, hey, like, I'll answer your questions. And I was like, that's not particularly helpful. But he did give me some history of like kind of the spot and the location, because it was a very like rich hill, basically, with a lot of like very rich people that lived on it. And that did carry through into the Renaissance period when the person who built the alchemical door was living there. And so when I was like, okay, awesome. Like, glad it's this rich place. I kind of already knew that from my research, but like following that along. And then the next person who showed up as I'm sitting there like eating pasta, first of all, really full of himself. He thought he was great, but he was this wealthy man that used to own this huge like manor-like estate that encompassed most of the park at one point in time, which was interesting to me because the ruins that I was seeing, and I'm not an archaeologist by any means, but I was like, okay, they look like they're kind of a combo of some of the ancient stuff, some of the more like modern, I say modern, but Renaissance stuff, kind of all mishmashed together, but most of it's destroyed still. However, they have left this door, whatever the door is, and I didn't even see it at the time. I still haven't seen the door. I was like, this is very interesting to me. Can you tell me more about the door? And all he would say is, the door is magic. The door was for someone else to figure out. And it's not the only one. And I was like, it's not the only door? Like, where are the other doors? Are there other doors? And he was just like, it's not the only one. And he was very wealthy. He was very snooty. He was very proud of his abilities. And he was just like, they're not the only one. It's not the only door. I don't know where the other ones are, but it's not the only door. And I was like, okay, does the door lead anywhere? And he was like, all doors lead somewhere, which you'll understand when I read the inscriptions on this door, why I laughed at this after the fact, because I was like, okay, all doors lead somewhere. Awesome. So anyway, I was like, Weston, before we leave Rome, I need to go look at this door. Like, everything about me is saying I have to go look at this door. My guides are pushing it. I don't know why we got showed this door, but I need to go see this door. And I only recently, really, really recently understand why I was shown this door and why I need to go see it. And I'll give you a little spoiler. I didn't realize why I need to go see the store until well after I had returned home from Rome. So on our last day there, we were walking the Path of Illumination, which is a book reference if you are a fan of Dan Brown. We were like, we're going to walk the Path of Illumination, which we did. It was awesome. And I'm not going to spoil it if you have not read Angels and Demons to really encompass what that is in this video. I'll do a different spoilery video on that, but it was really cool. And I got to channel in a bunch of different churches, especially one where it was rumored that was where the ghost of Nero used to haunt, which is why they built the church there. I'll do videos about that as well. But anyway, we traveled basically all across Rome, and one of our stops was at this door, and it was during the daytime. And this is what it looks like. Cool. So I was able to see this door. You can't get up very close to it. Obviously, it has kind of a gold sheen, and the inscriptions aren't actually on the door themselves. They're on like the outside edge, like between the statues. They're on the outside of it. So when I was looking at it in the daytime, I could get a lot clearer read. First of all, the ruins themselves felt weird. This is kind of like a little bit of like what the ruins look like. And I just couldn't shake the weird blending. Like usually in other parts of Rome or in other places I've traveled, you can kind of feel history like layers. So when I'm channeling it in, it's kind of like, okay, I feel this layer over here and I can see this thing over here. And it's kind of like silhouettes of stuff all stacked up, but I can kind of weed through it. But this one just felt like a wall. And I don't know if it actually, I have a feeling that some sort of fire resulted in the ruins kind of being this way in some capacity. And I don't actually think that the ruins themselves comprise a lot of the ancient Roman stuff, with the one exception, which I'll talk about in a second. I feel like it is more Renaissance-esque, but there's just this weird burning feeling that I got the second that I got closer. And I was like, okay, I think a fire happened here. Not like the ancient Roman fire, but like a fire in like of this specific manor, this specific house. That might be why there is only one door. Because I was like, there is no other doors there. We walked around. I was like, there is one door. It's that door that I showed you. It has the two little statue guys. It is that door. That's the only one that's there. I don't know what he's talking about with the other door. But when I looked at the door, two weird things showed up energetic. The first of the weird things is that the statues felt weird. And I know that sounds silly. You're like, well, they kind of look weird. They felt oddly magnetized to be placed on the sides of the door. And I know that sounds odd, but they're a figure that I immediately could associate with God, goddess energy, something like that. I was like, ooh, okay, there's definitely some like very intense, like these statues at some point have been blessed by someone who had a very strong, real connection with a deity. And I could feel that immediately. And I immediately got the feeling that the deity was Egyptian. Not that they came through necessarily to talk. It was mostly like my guides being like, it's this. So I just smacked my hand. So it's like, okay, so there's Egyptian energy with this, which is very common throughout Rome. I mean, there's obelisks freaking everywhere. But then the second thing is the door itself felt very swirled together, very blendy of energy. And obviously, as I said, there's inscriptions around the door, but I couldn't read them from as far away as I was. So I was like, I don't know what's going on with this inscription situation. I don't understand what they are, but they feel like there's so many layers of energy and it feels really, really strong. The energy that got imbued into this door is really, really magical in some capacity. Now, before I tell you why I felt led to this door and why I kind of figured out the importance of this door for myself, let me tell you a little bit about like the official history of this door based off of what I found on Wikipedia and other websites. I found most of my information on Wikipedia and then the other part of my information on Atlas Obscura, which Atlas Obscura is fun, but they don't tend to go as deep as I want them to. Just a side note, someone who loves obscure history, I want them to go deep, 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 and that's what channeling is for. And I get it, but I get a lot of it. I got some of it from Atlas Obscura as well. So I'm just going to read it. I might put it up here. I'm probably going to put it up here. You're going to get to read it with me, but here we go. The alchemical door, also known as the Alchemy Gate or Magic Portal, is a monument built between 1678 and 1680 by Massimiliano Palombara, by a wonderful Italian person whose names I cannot pronounce, Marquis of Pietraforte, in his residence, the Villa Palombara. I'm so bad at Italian. And the Villa Palombara. I'm sorry, Lacusta's like fucking laughing her ass off at me. She didn't even speak Italian. She spoke Latin, but she just gets a kick out of it when I butcher words. Anywho, which was located on Esquiline Hill near Piazza Vittorio in Rome. This is only one of 5 former gates of the villa that remains. There was a lost door on the opposite side, dating them to 1680, and four other lost inscriptions on the walls of the mansion inside the villa. The villa that I think burnt. Also, I don't know if it burnt. I haven't been able to find records of the Villa Palombara and whether or not that villa burnt, but at least according to the people, it did. The people I talked to who lived there, they said it burnt. But all of the other gates used to be inside, with the exception of one other one that was on the other side of the gate, which I assume means like on the other side of that wall thing that I showed you in the picture. And that's the one that actually had the dates on it. Judging by everything I can find, no one knows where any of the other gates are. If they burnt down completely or where they went, or if they just got destroyed because of history. So this is the only one remaining. So when the guy said there were other gates and he thought I was weird for not understanding that, that's what he meant. There is other gates. Okay. Next part of the story. According to a story collected by the erudite Francesco Cancelleri, in 1802, a pilgrim named Stitbium was hosted in the villa for a night. That night, the pilgrim, identified later by some as the alchemist Giuseppe Francisco Bori, he's important. Remember him. Searched the gardens of the villa overnight in search of a mysterious herb capable of concocting gold. Legend held that the next morning he was seen to disappear forever through a door, but left behind a few flakes of gold, the fruits of a successful alchemical transmutation, and a mysterious paper full of puzzling symbols and equations, punitively describing the ingredients and process required. The Marquis had this symbol engraved on the 5 gates of the Villa Palombara and on the walls of the mansion, hoping that one day they would be translated. So that is the first legend. And when I read that first legend, I was like, oh, okay. That is a very legendy sounding legend. I'm not going to lie. Like, that is a big time legendy feeling legend where I'm like, okay, he went through the door, left behind flakes of gold, and the recipe was never seen again. But something had to be important enough for them to want to create these doors around and actually write down this recipe.
Legends are lessons, they ring with truth.
So there was definitely a kernel of truth in that, and I went to reconnect with the fellow I had talked to before, who had yet to tell me his name, and I was like, hey, this is the legend, and he was like, that's only kind of how it happened, and kind of just like shrugged it off. Again, he's very proud of himself. So that's legend number 1. Let me read you legend number 2. A second legend holds that between 1678 and 1680, the same Giuseppe Francesco Bori, along with Athensius Kircher and Gian Lorenzo Bernini, I'm so bad at names, designed and built the gate for the Marquis. The Marquis Palombara developed a passion for alchemy in 1656 when he visited the alchemical laboratory in Riaro Palace, now known as Palazzo Corsini. Patronized by the exiled queen, Christina of Sweden. The laboratory was supervised, blah, 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 blah. The tradition holds that the gate was built to memorialize a successful alchemical transmutation that occurred in the Riaro Palace. It was rumored that Palombara, Bernini, and Kircher were all poisoned on the 28th of November, 1680, probably by Bori, for having revealed the secret formulas through the inscriptions of the gate. Cancellerini published his semi-factual account in 1806, including his interpretation of the inscriptions on the Porta Alchemica, which is the alchemical door. Both these legends come from one source, basically. One guy who was like, hey, these are the things that happen. These are the 2 different legends. And I think it's a combo. Actually, the amount of energy that's at the door, based on what I channeled, Bori definitely had something to do with it, which is interesting because he's a little bit of a near fictional person that exists in the history of alchemy, especially in Rome. There's a lot of accounts of different stuff from him, and there's not a lot of truth in a lot of these spaces. It feels like he's very much been fictionalized in the alchemical circles. And keep in mind, alchemists, their goal was to change ore typically into gold in some capacity, some sort of stone into gold, or iron into gold, or ash into gold. I mean, there's a bunch of different things that alchemists were doing, which I'm not a historian in that aspect. I've just talked to a bunch of them and read about them. So there was a bunch of different things they were doing, but getting something to transmute into gold was the absolute ultimate goal. So when I was like, okay, is that more like this story? He gave kind of a little huff and was like, I don't know, maybe. And it was a little bit like, okay, so did you poison them or did you not poison them? However, what it feels like at the core of it is the recipe that was put on this door does come back to him. And from what I can piece together, based on what I have channeled in, the doors were carved because the people deeply believed that was genuinely the recipe to make gold. There was some sort of reason that they could not actually do it, though. I think it might actually be a time reason, and this is me getting super metaphysical, so like if this bothers you, I'm sorry, but I'm going on very deep energy magic things here and how I see and understand the universe. I think they were missing an energetic component that had long since kind of disappeared off the planet. I think it comes from when the planet's vibration was a lot higher and magic and deities and different worlds were easier to cross in and out of. And I have a feeling, and I had a feeling then, when I read this the first time, that the reason that they inscribed these on doors is because whatever missing ingredient that they needed in order to actually make this recipe work came from somewhere else. Off planet. Yeah. So I think that's what they were actually missing, which is again why they put it on doors and around the sides of house. Doors are very symbolic, and doors matter. Anyway, that's what I got from it, is they were missing a key energetic component. And I'm pretty sure Mr. Bori found a way to access that, but it was like a one and done sort of situation. And that is why they left that on the door. Now, it's very interesting to me that not all of the doors were destroyed, that one was left. It's almost as if somebody or something didn't want the recipe to be gone forever and wanted to leave at least some part of it there, because there's some very deep magic in this. And whether or not you believe it's true, can we all acknowledge that there's some very deep magic in this? Like, this is a very deep, very interesting story that is intricately woven together. And even the minutiae of that is magic. I deeply believe there's other magic going on here. However, there's big magic energy there. There's big magic stuff going on. So let me tell you a little bit more about what the door looks like and what's inscribed on the door. This is what those inscriptions look like. I'll try to do a little side-by-side on video thing. We'll see how that goes. Okay. The monument has numerous symbols and inscriptions used in alchemy. The inscriptions are hard to read from the monument itself. I can attest to that. As you can tell from my picture, they're carved in white stone. They're nearly impossible to read unless you're like right up on it, which I could not get to. Around the circle at the top, the center is the triangle of the center. That's what it says. Also, there are 3 marvels: God and man, mother and virgin, triune and one, which is, again, this is during the very Catholic time in Rome, so keep that in mind. The Hebrew inscription, which is right below the very Catholic inscription, means Spirit of God. Beneath it, the Hesperious dragon guards the entrance of the magic garden, and without Alcides, Jason would not have tasted the delights of Clochis, which I'm sorry if I butchered any of those names. Again, I'm not great at it. You can tell already there's a lot of blending happening. Okay. There are 6 sigils on the jams, each with a phrase. Saturn, which is the symbol for lead. When in your house black crows give birth to white doves, then you will be called wise. Jupiter, which is the symbol for tin. The diameter of the sphere, the tau of the circle, the cross of the globe do not benefit the blind. Then there's Mars, which is a symbol for iron. He who can burn with water and wash with fire makes heaven from earth and precious earth from heaven. And then Venus, which is the symbol for bronze. If you will make the earth fly upon your head, you will convert the waters of torrents to stone by its feathers. The symbol for Mercury, which says, Azoth and fire, by whitening Latona, Diana will come without dress, which is interesting to me. Antimony, the symbol for antimony. Our sun lives dead, the king returns from the fire and enjoys the occult conjunction. On the very base, vitriol. It is occult work of true wise to open the earth so as he may germinate health and safety for people. On another plate, which is now lost, was the device via really long Latin phrasing, which means passing by, opening the door of the villa. Laison obtained the rich fleece of Medea, which would be the golden fleece of myth. So, and then on the doorstep of this door, there's a palindrome, meaning both, if you sit, you do not go, and if you do not sit, you go. Now, of course, people can be like, this is all just mad waving. This is all alchemy stuff. Alchemy stuff is weird. There were secret societies. There were mystery schools. There was all sorts of stuff. But I can tell you from me right now in this reality, the energy of this door is absolutely bonkers. And I cannot even fathom how much energy 5 doors would be together. It blows my mind. So there was definitely deep energy work going on there, even if they weren't necessarily transmuting lead to gold. Also, it is a really cool differentiation from a lot of the energy of the time with the exploration. To put it out in such a visibly open way is definitely a move of men with money. Let's just put it that way. But also, really interesting call on their part. But then I was like, okay, what the fuck is the statues about? Were the statues always there? Why do those feel Egyptian? What's coming up with that? Here's the answer I found on this one. The statues. The statue figures on both sides of the door feature deformed creatures, which, rude. I don't think they're deformed, but beside the point, with short, stout legs and a grotesque bearded face represent of a real Egyptian divinity or semi-divinity called Bes. They were Egyptian. Don't look Egyptian, feel Egyptian though. A patron of the home, childbirth, and infants in ancient Egypt, Bes was also known in Imperial Rome, where in pre-Christian age, several people followed Egyptian cults. First of all, weird wording. Okay, Wikipedia, several people. No, Egyptian cults were huge in ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, again, this is based on my own research and a lot of my own channeling. In ancient Rome, you were allowed to believe literally whatever the heck you want. When we were in Ostia Antica, which is a very active archaeological site of this basically ancient Roman town, we got to see the first legal Western synagogue in the Western world. The first legal synagogue in the Western world. And literally there was still a carving of a menorah on the wall because ancient Romans did not give a flying fuck what you believed as long as you paid your taxes. Now, they did have some beef with different groups over time. Nero historically blamed the Christians for burning down Rome. I mean, there was definitely beefs that went on, but overall, Rome was a place of a lot of religious freedom. And there was a lot of worship of the Egyptian stuff. Keep in mind, all this stuff was ancient. The stuff that they found in ancient Egypt as Romans was ancient to them. It was thousands of years old to them. So there was still that occult feeling that comes along with ancient Egyptian artifacts and ancient Egyptian belief systems for the ancient Romans. So the reason the statues didn't look ancient Roman, the reason the statues didn't look ancient Egypt is because they were carved and built in Rome, worshiping ancient Egyptian deities. It's the deity of Bes. Now, here's a little bit more. Originally, the 2 statues did not belong to the Villa Palombara. They were found somewhere near Quirinale Hill, where in ancient times stood a large temple dedicated to the Egyptian gods Isis and Serapis. I'm going to say it that way. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Anyway, century after century, many of its rich decorations, reliefs, small obelisks, etc. were unearthed and were relocated to different parts of the city. The places where rich people could put them. During the works for the opening of Piazza Vittorio in 1888, these statues were moved from their original location to the Porta Alchemica. They knew that this door was valuable and cool. This is 200 years after the death of the person that made this door, or one of the people that could have made this door. We're going to put it that way. They still know that this door was impactful and important. The building was already in ruins, and they moved those statues there when they could have gone to a different rich person. If that doesn't feel like a god intervening on behalf of its statues, I don't think I know what does. Genuinely. I don't think I do, because that is very much an intervention. But that's why the energy looked all sorts of weird. Super duper side note, we were staying on the Quirinale Hill. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm trying to mimic the way that the people said it to me, so I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly. I'm so sorry. But we were staying on the Quirinale Hill, and I could feel all of the ancient temple energy, and I was talking to Lacusta about the different things that were there, and she mentioned very offhandedly that there were a bunch of temples there, like Egyptian temples, whatever, just because she doesn't really care. She's not big on religion in general. Anyway, so she just kind of offhandedly mentioned this to me, and I was like, okay, interesting. So then when I discovered that, oh, those are ancient Egyptian statues. They're ancient. When I say ancient, they're not ancient Egyptian, meaning ancient Egypt, but they're ancient like they existed at the time that Lacusta existed. And throughout this entire trip, I was intentionally pulled by her and others to places where there were actual artifacts from her time. Now, we're going to take there's all that. We're going to leave that over there. And we're going to take a little bit of jump over here. And I'm going to tell you why I also feel it was important for me to stumble upon this door. I recently finished reading the book, The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. There's a picture of the cover. It is fucking incredible. I love it with every single fiber of my being. It is such a fabulous book. I think in the first quarter of the book, I cried like 6 times. It is so well done. But I want to read you the first line of the book that immediately gave me full body chills because my brain immediately went to this door. When I was 7, I found a door. I suspect I should capitalize that word so you understand I'm not talking about your garden or common variety door that leads reliably to a white-tiled kitchen or bedroom closet. When I was 7, I found a door. First of all, amazing first line. From a writing perspective, as a writing coach, phenomenal. But also, I immediately was like, I found a door. I found a door really recently. Like, I found a door, and I would capitalize it. I would emphasize that word, door, for sure. Now, the whole book goes on to describe, well, it's a phenomenal story, and I'm not spoiling anything, but doors create change. They're places where between two worlds there exists a door, and things seep through. Things from a different world seep into ours, and they cause the waves of change we get. They cause even in the book, it's like, even Darwin's, random mutations and those kinds of things, which again, I know it is just a book.
Legends are lessons, they ring with truth.
However, all things exist in energetic reality. I talk about this extensively on my other platforms. I will do in-depth videos about it here, I promise. But the whole concept was the door makes change. And I thought that was very, very interesting because since finding this door and since returning from Rome, and I don't think it's just the door, but I think the door has a big thing to do with it, I have, for the first time in pretty much a year, dove back into developing and expanding my own psychic ability and process. I have made changes. My communication is different. Things are moving and changing. And after all of this, I wouldn't have connected it with the door at all. But the fact that this book now fell into my lap and I got to read into this book and I was like, okay, it's the door. Doors equal change. Now, I didn't feel any connection to another world necessarily seeping through it at present, but I'm pretty sure when those 5 doors were together, they were able to do some big ass magic and make some big ass change. And that remnants is still there. So that's my full circle moment. That is my experience with the alchemical door or the magic door of Rome. And I do know a lot of this is hearsay, but this is going off of my own channeling. This is going off of what I have connected with the universe on. It's something I'm really passionate about, is channeling history, channeling people who lived in the ancient past. If you have any questions about any of this, by all means, please, please, please ask me. Go ahead and ask in the comments and I will give you as much clarity as I can. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching my content. If you want more channeled history content too, just let me know. I love doing this sort of stuff. Also, thank you again to my patrons for supporting my channel and for all of you for supporting my channel as well. Again, if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, hitting the little notification ding-dongy bell, it means the whole world to me. And again, comment as well. Yeah, super good at closing videos. Remember that nothing's impossible and you're magical as fuck. Bye-bye.